Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet, the go-to podcast for parents with multiple kids, especially those with twins, triplets, or more, who are navigating the maze of modern family life and personal finance. Whether you're overwhelmed by education or retirement planning, parenting dilemmas, career transitions, or trying to define your purpose and plan, we're here to guide you with empathy, encouragement, and expertise. Hosted by Paul Fenner, founder of Tama Capital, a certified financial planner and parent to 4 kids, including a set of triplets. Our podcast is your ally in the quest for financial peace of mind, proving that money matters, but family comes first. Subscribe now and join our community of empowered parents at tamacapital.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Tama may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What does comprehensive financial planning even mean? At Tama Capital, it means a family office where lifestyle planning such as retirement, college, portfolio management, and tax prep and planning are all under one umbrella. But it goes beyond numbers. We focus as much on the emotional side of financial planning as we do on the financial side. We get you. We understand your challenges of building a family, business or career, and a healthy life. We are devoted to wealth planning for families like yours because we are you. Learn how our family can help your family by visiting tamacapital.com. What's it like planning and actually taking a trip of a lifetime? Maybe something you've been thinking about for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. How about 30 years or more? That's what I'm going to discuss today with Jill Benedict, our resident travel expert. We're going to dive into the recent Mediterranean trip that my wife Teresa and I took for our wedding anniversary that, if you ask Teresa, it's probably been close to 40 years in the works and the planning. But one other really interesting topic that we get into with Jill is one that hits home for us in particular is the trying to plan a family vacation around kids' activities, whether it's sports, extracurricular, theater, band, you name it. How do you make family trips really count when you know you only have so many summers left? Please enjoy my conversation with Jill Benedict. All right, Jill Benedict, our resident travel expert on the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast. Welcome back.
This is going to be a fun one. I feel like it's our third one now. I'm more comfortable. I was so nervous the first time. Now we're like old pals.
Well, the only thing that you need to be nervous about is how you almost killed me on our last cruise again. Yeah,
what did I do?
Yeah. Second to last night on Royal Caribbean. We got to call it Royal Caribbean because that's what we were on. God bless them. Because the first trip I got sick on was a Disney cruise. But second to last day, I contract a unknown, I'm using air quotes for the people listening and not watching us on YouTube, stomach virus. And I just like Tylenol, ibuprofen my way through it. Got on the long plane ride from Rome, connecting through Boston back to Detroit. We land at like a little after midnight. By like 8 o'clock, I'm in urgent care, negative for COVID, negative for flu. But they're like, yeah, you're in pretty bad shape. We're going to give you some IV and Toradol, like some painkiller.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was sick for like it just went downhill from there. So I don't know what I picked up, but it's like I've gone on 4 cruises the last 2 years and I've gotten sick twice.
You know what? I can't. It's honestly, it's like you never know if it's the cruise ship itself because they do such a good job with keeping clean, or if it's like the places you're going to. Yeah. I've had some wild things happen. My whole family, when we were on our Europe cruise, we ended in Rome and then we went over to Disneyland Paris. And I always tell my guests, like my biggest thing, I'm like, pack a pharmacy. Like when you cruise, especially because on cruise ships, I think we've said it in the past, but if you get sick on a cruise ship and you go down for medical care, 1, sometimes they can charge you, but then 2, all the medication that you need is down there. And then if you're getting something that's potentially, flagging that you have a bad cold or something you need to quarantine, you're subject to getting quarantined in your room or, down in the medical facility, they have like a whole hospital down there for the length of your stay, which obviously, people get common colds. It's part of life. You don't want to have to like put yourself into that situation. So when we got really sick and I had just like, of course, didn't take my own advice. We go to Disneyland Paris after, and we're looking.
This is the one that you just went on,
yeah,
right?
This was in May of this year. And so my husband's got this cold. I've got this cold. My parents got it. We think actually what happened was my brother's fiance works in an urgent care. She's a nurse practitioner. And so she's always kind of bringing home stuff. So they kind of had it like little bit, like a touch of it. And we think we could have even gotten it from, it could be anywhere, but who cares how we got it. So I go to my husband, I'm like, go to the gift shop. Like in Florida and Disney World, you go to the gift shop. They've got like everything under the sun medication
Everything,
wise.
yeah.
He goes down and we're in France and they're like, well, no, we can't sell medication. It's all regulated like through pharmacies in France. You're not going to find any medication here. They also had like kind of like it's called Disney Village. It's like their Disney Springs we could walk to. Nope, nothing there. So he had to take an Uber to a pharmacy like 2 miles away in the nearest town. And then everything's in French, obviously. It's all like different kind of herbal medications and stuff. It was this debacle to get us some like sinus and cold medications. And then, of course, it's the whole running joke that I'm the worst travel agent for my own family because I did not pack any medicine. So now I'm like, every guest that I have that's leaving this country, especially, I'm like, bring your medicine. Like, you have to, even if you're not sick when you go there.
We actually met this really great couple. Shout out to Nibs and Malloy and their 2 daughters. God, I'm going to blank on their names, especially if they end up watching this. But they're from Miami. They were great. Nibs is a dentist. And he's like, it's like one of the first cruises they've ever been on, I think, if I remember what he told me. And like, he like packed a whole pharmacy, like antibiotics this, antibiotics that. And I probably should have gone to him and said, hey, I need something maybe a little bit more stronger than what I'm taking. But it was still like, so for those that don't know, Jill booked Teresa and our wedding anniversary trip. We're recording this at the beginning of September. We went middle of August. Amazing trip, trip of a lifetime. We went to Rome for 2 days, and then we were on a Royal Caribbean Mediterranean cruise that went to Santorini, Mykonos, Ephesus, which is Turkey, and then Naples, and then back to Rome. So it was 7 days, 4 ports, and it was amazing. I think if you asked Teresa the highlight of her trip, it would have been dinner overlooking the Mediterranean in Santorini. Like you picture like you just picture the picture of the white buildings and all of that, and the blue domes and all that. And it was amazing. The food, that dinner was amazing. I'll get to food in a second because I've got a bone to pick with Royal on that one again. And then in the meantime, like we're sitting here and I noticed they set this other couple next to us or on the side of us. And I told Teresa, I'm like, that guy's going to pop the question. And like about 30 minutes later, they stand up, they're taking some photos. And then I see that he hands his camera off to the waiter. And then he starts talking. I'm like, here it comes, Teresa. Yep. And then bam, on a knee. And they were awesome. They were a great couple. They were from Canada, from Montreal area. So
that's awesome.
It was, it was really cool. But I think the stop that surprised us the most was Mykonos, where we went to the island of Delos. Okay. Where a lot of the initial, like, you think of Greece, you think of Athens first, as far as like the culture and all that goes. And I've obviously never been to Athens, but Delos is kind of like where it all started as well. And the ruins there were amazing. And we had a really great tour guide. And I know I'm kind of on a tangent here, but I will say, for those of you listening and watching, if you're going on one of these trips, and I'm anxious to get your input on this or feedback, because you're the one that actually probably recommended this to Teresa, was when we were in Rome, which I think was the best part of the trip, we had a one-on-one private tour guide and a driver that took us around. It was expensive. Yes. But that was worth every single penny. Like Nicole was incredible, who was our guide. Walter was our driver, was incredible. They knew how to get around. They knew where to take us. They knew how much time we should spend. So in one day in Rome, we went to the Colosseum first. Then we went to St. Mary Major Church where St. Francis is buried. And then we went to the Vatican, went through the Sistine Chapel, and then went to St. Peter's, and then the square that you always see on TV. And that was all amazing. And there was no way that we would have been able to pull that off either on our own or with, I saw like a lot of group tours.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely worth the money. So I don't know if Teresa talked me into that or you talked to Teresa into that to talk to Teresa and me, but it was worth it.
Yeah. And I get to know when I'm traveling the world, get to know different guides in different cities and things. And I had met a guide from Florence. And so I was like, hey, do you have any contacts in Rome? And so he sends me his guy. And so I've been using him for my guests. And then I finally got Fabio's company. I finally got the opportunity to use him for my trip. And they will do both just if you need a transfer. So like a nice van just to the airport, to a hotel, or hotel to a cruise port in Rome. They can do that. But then they also do, day trip tours. We actually use them for every leg. So like the day we landed at like 9 a.m. in Rome. And so we had an Airbnb booked for our big family because it was a big trip. And they picked us up in this big van. And I was like, I don't want to do the craziness of Rome. We're coming off flights, kind of in like, cozy, whatever. We changed at the airport, but nothing, not a full day of Rome touring after the overnight flight. But we had that downtime. So they took us to a local town outside of Rome, like kind of in the countryside a little bit. And we had lunch there. It was like a local pasta place, like no English, it's on a board and we're pointing out what the other people had, like that kind of experience. Amazing pasta lunch. They gave us a little tour of the town. And even like there was this gorgeous like cathedral up on a hill that a lot of royals will come even from like UK and stuff and get married at. So we're just seeing this little pretty place that you're not touristy Rome. And then the next day we did the full day thing like you did where, they pick us up and they have the VIP for the Vatican, Colosseum, Pantheon, like you name it. We had a local lunch. It's so good. And then they pick us up for the cruise port the next day. And even like I have guests that will dock in Rome at Civitavecchia. I'm going to butcher it. But like they'll come into Rome for a day if like their cruise is out of Barcelona or out of Ravenna, which is Venice. And then when they want to do their full day Rome tours, they use this company too. But I got to talk to the owner, like they're legit. And there's a lot of, you don't know who to trust out there. It's foreign countries.
Right.
He's legit. And I got to know, like, they had the House of Gucci contract when they were filming. So they had like the different, like the actors. He's done my favorite football player, Tom Brady's family. They've toured before. Like they get a lot of good high profile clients and for a reason, because they're phenomenal. So, companies like that, I can recommend to my guests so they have a flawless experience if they want to go big with it. And, it's amazing. And that can make or break you. Like I even had a family recently that they wanted to kind of like go on their own with stuff and book trains, and that's fine. But I've seen people just, they try on their own and then it's, something goes wrong and it just can domino your whole day and ruin things. So it's like once in a lifetime trips, you can't put a price on memories, I always say. So just go big on it. And
so the other thing I wanted, so there's lots of things we're going to get into, but I wanted to just stick on this trip for a few more minutes in that, because I got questions about this too, about, well, you did a cruise, Paul, and you got to see all these different sites. I wonder what that would have been like if you're comparing like going on a cruise and being able to go and see these multiple sites in one trip versus like going to like Rome, but then having to get on another, train, bus, even airplane to go to another place to only be able to be there for a day or two. Like, I don't know how we would have been able to see all these really unique, historical, landmark, amazing places if we didn't do the cruise route. Now I'll joke about the bad Royal Caribbean food and getting sick, but when I look at it like from a logistics standpoint, like I think that it was so much, from my opinion, and Teresa I think would agree, is it's so much smoother to be able to do a cruise and be able to see all those spots rather than trying to piece together or mash together, like doing something different.
Right.
Is that,
and
what do you think about that?
Because I've done land trips before in Europe and stuff, and then I've done cruises. And for me, cruising 100% hands down, just because, I mean, yes, some people are like, well, I want to have the nighttime. Well, sometimes you're docked later, so you can have the nighttime in cities. But ultimately, like, you can do your, like, I'll have my Rome nights on my, the ends of the trip. Like, we'll stay 1 or 2 nights in the city we started in, or, we did an extension. We did 3 nights in Paris, 1 night in like the city center, 2 nights in Disneyland. And we did all of like, Paris, because it was a cheap flight from Rome over to Paris at the end. And then actually there was the great Delta flights out of Charles de Gaulle to go back to the US. So it worked out really well to kind of do those smaller land segments. But when you're in Europe, you're, primarily it's trains, sometimes you can get private transfers, but you're eliminating with the cruise all that extra packing up the room, being out by 11 a.m., getting people, the stress of the train stations, the doors close so fast, like all of it is like so stressful. And essentially on a cruise, you get on the ship, you're tired from like a full day of sightseeing. You've got, dinner at your disposal, and then you do nighttime activities or just hit the bed, whatever. And then the next day you wake up, you're in a new spot. So you're taking all of that like stressful in between out of the equation and just covering more ground. And then I feel like if you find somewhere that you really, really fall in love with and you want to go back to, either, you could stop there again on another cruise, or maybe in the future, that's where you kind of will do an extension on the front or back end. Like for us, we did one of the ports. It was Florence and not Florence and Pisa. No, it was another one. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. But basically, it was Naples. So you have Naples, Capri, and then the ruins there. And so we did like a 3-part combo trip. So we wanted to see everything.
So just to interrupt,
yes.
So Naples, that's where outside of Naples is where Pompeii's at. But
yes,
then
Pompeii,
there's also the Amalfi Coast. So I just want people to in case they didn't know exactly where that at, because they hear Pompeii, but they don't. I mean, they may not, and I didn't necessarily know it either until I started looking it up. Was that it's the city next to, or the big city to get in and out of, is Naples.
Correct. Yes. So that's the port. So your options are pretty much, you go to Pompeii for the ruins. You can go to Capri, which is beautiful, and then Sorrento, and that's kind of Amalfi Coast type-ish. And then there's also even
which is what we did.
Yes, there's a lot of different excursions within that port of call when you go there. So for us, it was our first time going. We're like, we'll do this combination tour that goes to all 3. So we're at the ruins, and they're fine. But like once, and I think you could vouch for it, once you start seeing some ruins, it starts getting a little repetitive in a sense where you don't want to spend hours. And then my family is more like action, foodie types and stuff. So they're all like, get me out of these ruins. Let's go to a food town. And then we head over to Sorrento, and we were there, like we didn't have
that place was surprisingly amazing.
It was so cool. Yes. And so we only had like an hour and a half there, I think, tops on this tour. So they're basically like, go get some lunch on your own and come back. And we found like our best probably meal of our whole trip there in Sorrento, in this little town. And we were like, God, we got to come back here and spend more time. And then at the end, we did Capri, which was also really cute. Loved walking around there in the vibe. So we've said next time we go on a cruise and we stop there, potentially, we're going to like take out the ruins and just spend more time in, Sorrento and even Capri, or, maybe we did the Amalfi Coast, where we did the Cinque Terre on our Florence Pisa stop. So instead of going into like, I've heard Florence is amazing too. So that's another reason why you can take more than one cruise. If it goes to the support of call and like, some of the same overlap, you can still do different things and change up your trip each time too, which is kind of neat. But so I've heard Florence is great, but we did the Cinque Terre. That was like our favorite excursion. But really, like I said, just finding these little places that you love and getting to see them and covering so much ground. And like, say, I had booked the whole trip to, the Pompeii area, then I'm not stuck there. Like that town, really, besides the ruins, really, there wasn't much going on. And so people that don't know, they're like, oh, we'll spend 2-3 nights here. And then they've got this land trip with not a lot of options. Basically.
So one thing I want to pick up that you mentioned, and I didn't think about this, but I think it's really important, is how I described our trip is before we got on the cruise, we spent like the 2 days in Rome, then did the cruise. I am actually, and Teresa said the same thing, because our friends, Nibs and Malloy, did the kind of opposite. They got on the cruise and then they were staying or going someplace for a day or two after that. But we were exhausted by the end of that cruise. So I am so glad that we did like our 2 days in Rome on the front end of the cruise versus the back end, because like I was tired and ready to come home, and I was sick too.
Yeah, that'll do it. I also think too, it was with how tired we would be after some of these days. I mean, some of the excursions were like 10, 12 hours. We did stagger it a little bit where we weren't doing like, you can't do like 12 hours every day. Maybe one day you did a shorter day excursion, like a 4-day one or 4-hour one, or, you don't want to like do, because I learned that I did a trip I was an Iceland, Ireland, and England cruise actually. And I was like booking us these like 12-hour.
By the way, that's where I'm going
Iceland.
next year. You just don't know it yet.
Yes.
My 50th birthday is next year.
Cruise.
And I'm going to Ireland.
Oh yeah, we did. So, but we were in Iceland and I was going too hard on the excursions and the waterfalls because I love waterfalls. And my husband's like, enough waterfalls by like the third stop. So and also like in the middle of the cruise lines will work with you. If you have an excursion booked, you at least need to typically like, the day before, but you can go to shore excursions and work something out with them where they could give you potentially, like they say it's non-refundable, but you can talk to them. And usually they're very great about giving you a refund or letting you change it, because I've, like I said, I joke around, I fail so you don't. Like I've overcompensated ourselves, and then our family's just like, no, we can't do another 8-hour day. So then I go down there and they'll, they're flexible with it. So don't be afraid if you have something. And that's another reason why I tell people, book with the cruise lines when you can versus these third-party companies. Like sometimes you can save a few dollars, but at the end of the day, they'll be flexible if you need to change. And then also we had a situation pop up. So when you're booked with a cruise line excursion, if your excursion's late getting back, they will hold the ship for you. That's like their policy. And, sometimes you'll go to sites like Viator and stuff. They're great. You'll find some deals. And sometimes you have to go outside for what you're looking for. But my first choice, I'm always checking what the cruise line offers first for that peace of mind. So we were in Mallorca, Spain, and we're coming back, and we had maybe like an hour between when we were supposed to get back and when the cruise ship was going to leave. Well, there was a really bad accident somewhere, in Mallorca, as in Spain. And we're in this van with, a bunch of people from our cruise ship. And we were in this traffic and we were literally going to miss the boat. They had to hold the ship. Maybe like we ended up being like 30 minutes late or something like that. But of course, you've got all the people on their balconies thinking we're pier runners and stuff. And they held it for us because they knew our excursion was coming back. Had I booked this through an outside company and we would have been in the same accident, the ship wouldn't have waited for us. And so it's instances like that really make you think, like, is it worth $20 per person to risk missing this ship and then being stuck in Spain with no luggage and the cruise line not caring because you didn't book it with them? So that's another thing to kind of think about.
I'm glad that you're pointing this out, and I'm hoping that listeners and viewers of this are heeding Jill's advice, because I know Teresa was really big on that too. Especially I think like when you're in a foreign country, that even heightens that
yes
that whole level of awareness and making sure that you're back on. So I want to touch on one last thing on our recent cruise trips, and then we're going to get into a really hot button topic issue. Once again, so 4 cruises the last 2 years, two on Royal this year, and then 2 on Disney the year before. And we actually upgraded our dining package on this Royal trip to the Mediterranean when we were on the Royal Caribbean Utopia of the Sea back in February with our kids. We did not. We just got the plain dining package. So we were hopeful that the new dining package would be better, like better food. But the food, to me, it was still like bland, not a whole lot of like taste. And then especially like when I compare that back to Disney of all places, like I just think that the Disney food, the 2 cruises I've been on with Disney, the food has just been so much better than what Royal was.
So here's 2 interesting points. Number 1, my husband is like not a fan of Disney's food. He loves Royal food. So then it's kind of like, it's hard. But number 2, I will tell you, when we were on our Allure of the Seas cruise, so one of the ones over in Europe, I could tell that a lot of the food on the ship was sourced. You're thinking about it, like they're getting their deliveries from Europe to stock the cruise ship and stuff. So a lot of their, like, even like the down at, like, I'm weird and I love chicken tenders. Even the chicken tenders were like different over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
not
like,
good.
So you're also on that ship in particular. It's a lot of, even like, so we went to the Mason Jar, which is like the barbecue restaurant. They had it on Allure.
I love that place.
I do too, but it tasted different. And it's like, it was just, I don't know if it's the stuff over there is, different food products coming in versus stuff you get, versus like in a US port, like, in Florida, what you're getting, that could have a little bit of play into it. and then just, that. But I get it where, cruise food, people love it, some don't like it. I always just say to myself, I'm like, it's mass produced food. So to say, it's, I've never had an issue where I call myself loyal to Royal. We sail on them multiple times, sometimes
you're a Royal girl.
But I am a foodie, and I've never really had issues with it. I will say that Celebrity of all cruise lines has the best food of any cruise line. That chef Daniel Boulud he's like a famous chef. He's their culinary director, and their cruise line is phenomenal for adults. They are family friendly, but I will say that there's not as many kids or teens on those cruise ships because they are more, I'm going to say they're more adult centric. They want me to promote that it's like for families, but I will say I'm honest with people. And so, but
that's why we love you.
Yes. And so when my husband and I go on Celebrity, it's like, oh my gosh, like even like their main dining room food, like you don't even need to upgrade off that because I feel like their food's it's insane. It's so good. So that's my favorite. I think you would really like that. Obviously, no kids with you guys, but just that's my take on it. Is
Celebrity a part of a bigger cruise line, or
so it's actually part of the Royal Caribbean family. So they have Silver Sea, which is they're very small, intimate, almost like a larger yacht type ships where
the Ritz-Carlton ships.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah. So then you've got Silver Sea and then Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. And so those are their three brands that that's called the Royal Caribbean Group. Okay. So it's part of that.
Okay.
I call it their adult cruise line, even though it's family.
Well, I'm looking forward to, so our next one is with the kids for their midwinter break this February. And I forget what ship we're on.
Disney.
I just go where
Love that
Teresa
ship.
tells me, or you tell me.
Yep.
So, and it's a 7-day. So it's going to be interesting to see how the kids handled that one, because the longest one we've been on with the kids was 5 days, except for Mac. She was on that cruise with us that got delayed for the hurricane. So we were on there for like 6. But, trying to schedule these trips are with kids' activities. Well, I'll just use the word activities because activities could be sports, obviously.
Yep.
It could be band. It could be theater. It could be
dance,
whatever.
Cheerleading, you name it.
And we already know our situation where you booked us on that Utopia of the Sea specifically for Madison so she could get up at 7 o'clock every morning and still do some kind of like swim laps, which was ridiculous. So, it's, and you're like in the heart of I would think your busy season right now because all the cruise lines came out with their new rates and deals and packages. So you're like been booking things up a storm. But walk us through like how are you working with families and managing, trying to plan this amazing trip, and then between like all these kid activities.
So this is definitely a struggle in my career because you want to ultimately book early. And so that's what I tell people all along. When you can book early, you are getting the best prices.
And you're booking early because of price? Okay.
So if you want, and everyone's always like, I'll wait for Black Friday, I'll wait for this. No, book early because we have price protection on pretty much all of our brands. Like up until your final payment date, whether it's Royal Caribbean, Disney Cruise Line, Disney World, even, Universal, the theme park packages, you name it, I can price adjust up until the final payment date. And then even if it's after final payment date, usually they're kind of done running these crazy sales. But if they run something last minute, if you've paid in full, they won't refund you, but you can use the difference towards an upgrade. So say they run a last minute closeout, like on a balcony room, and then there's a suite, we can use the funds, in the difference, and then you just pay a little bit extra to go to a suite. So I always say book early when you can. Like most people know, like President's Week's midwinter break, book then. But then also comes into the factor of, people are waiting for school and competition schedules. I'm going to share a story. This actually happened in the last 24 hours. So I have this family. They've been planning. It's a big milestone birthday for the grandmother, planning to go to Aulani, which is Disney's amazing resort in Hawaii.
That's where we got married.
Yeah, I've been there like 4 times in 2 years. I'm obsessed. It's my like happy place besides cruising. And so I booked them. They needed a 2-bedroom villa, which again, they have these 2-bedroom and even like 3-bedroom grand villas. A lot of people, especially when you're going with multiple families, they want these villas. They're hard to get in general.
I'm just people on YouTube, if you're watching me right now, like I'm getting like, when I start rubbing my face, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just seeing the dollar signs.
Yes. And like your family
is expensive.
Because their traditional rooms there, even like a 1-bedroom villa is going to cap out at 5. So like your family would automatically either be 2 rooms or 2-bedroom villa. The 2-bedroom villas sleep up to 9. And so I've got this large family in this villa, and it can run anywhere from like $2,000 to $3,000 a night. Call it. It's not cheap by any means. So we also, when we get these discounts, the best thing about, a travel advisor like me, like say discounts come out for Alani and you booked on your own, you're saying, oh, I got to call Alani now and get in this call queue with all the consumers that saw this discount drop. I got to try and get my price adjusted if it's even possible. With me, travel agents, we have the back end access. We can literally clicks of the button, we can adjust prices for our guests. So I get my guests' dates. I get the email. We get kind of tipped off discounts are coming. I save them. They have a 2-bedroom villa for spring break week. They booked it a while back, hoping for a discount just because they needed to get this room. I got them a discount. I saved them $6,500, I believe it was. Yeah, $6,500 on their stay that they weren't expecting. They were like, if a discount comes, great. We're not expecting it. It's spring break. So then everything's happy yesterday. All of a sudden I get a text from them this morning. They're like, you're going to kill me. My son just got his baseball tournament schedule, and he's got a tournament, like a 2-day tournament. And I think he's maybe like 12 years oldish. He's got a tournament for 2 days. And then can we move the trip up? So of course I go and I look. Number one, like absolutely no discounts. So now they're in this predicament where it's like, do they miss the kids' baseball tournament, or do they stay, move the dates, but they're going to jeopardize this discount now and end up paying $6,500 more than what they were paying. And so families are often struck with these decisions. And, from speaking for myself, I always give my words of wisdom. I'm 40. I played travel softball growing up, in high school. We had tournaments. We had obligations. My sister was even in competition dance. At the end of the day, like despite all these tournaments and everything, what I cherish the most are my family vacations. Like those are the memories that I look back on growing up, and those are what I remember. I can't tell you, maybe a certain tournament we had something funny happen, or like I hit the ball over the fence at Chippewa Valley once. Like that's fine, but at the end of the day, like, you know what? I feel like the sports teams, they're going to survive without your kid. It's not like it's like a high school varsity where, the state championship's on the line. If you've got a kid and it's just, I'm sorry, we're all, people have scheduling these tournaments even over like school spring breaks and stuff is like, why are these places doing this? But to me, I feel like that's such a substantial savings that I don't want to tell people how to parent or what to do, but from a professional standpoint, I'm just like, you know what? 5 years from now, you're going to remember this Hawaii trip, and you're going to have $6,500 to help you book some once in a lifetime excursions or offset some costs and do more things on this trip that you might not have been able to versus, a small tournament, and maybe the kids get spanked the whole time, and now you just lost 2 days of baseball and you get to go to Hawaii sad and $6,500 more less. So that's my take on it. And I'd like to hear your hot take as a parent these days, because I'm a dink, dual income, no kid, so I could speak on it from what I look back on, but I'm actually not the one in the hot seat with the kids.
Well, this is really interesting, because we had for our cruise trip, our European trip we just went on, we had something similar. Like, so Madison has moved up the ranks in the swimming world. I'm the swim parent of between Teresa and I. We have, obviously with triplets plus one, we have to divide and conquer. Yep. And I just kind of gravitated into that role and even helped run our swim club. Yeah. And so in swim, think of like there's regionals and then states and then what they call zones. So zones would be like where multiple states come together and compete against each other. Yep. So like when you make a zone team, you're not representing your club, you're representing like your state. So in our case, like Team Michigan. Okay. So getting a zone cut is like a really big deal. And it wasn't even on Madison's radar screen this summer season, which we call long course, but she did. And guess when the trip or the zone meet was?
During
your very first weekend that we left. So we left on a Thursday, and Madison had to be in Holland, Michigan, on the west side of the state Thursday to swim one event, and then she had to be back on Sunday to swim her other distance event. And I'd never missed a swim meet.
No.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this is like maybe the biggest swim meet she's going to be in. And Teresa's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, we're getting on that plane. We're getting on that boat. Like this is not the Olympics.
Yes.
So if this was the Olympics,
right,
that would be a different story. Yep. Like if Madison would have had an Olympic time trial qualifying cut to swim at Indianapolis last year, where the time trials were, that I took both the girls to, which was like probably like the best dad moment I may ever have in my life. It was amazing with the two of them there. If she would have qualified for that, then yeah, no trip. Like we needed to be there.
Exactly.
Because you just don't know if you're going to get that lifetime event back, because it's extremely hard. But like if it's a 12-year-old normal swim meet, baseball tournament, hockey tournament, like I think there's so much emphasis on sports, and I don't put politics into the portfolios that I manage or the families I work with. I don't try to put my own parenting biases into other people's purposes and objectives. I have families that spend tens of thousands of dollars on youth sports year in and year out. And I'm okay with it, and they're okay with it. And one of the reasons why we work well together and we're both okay with it, they realize that they're going to have to sacrifice something else, which means probably working longer, not being able to retire maybe as early as they want, not being able to go on like a big vacation every year. But that's okay. As long as that family understands that in order to do travel, hockey, softball, baseball, basketball, whatever it may be, there's a big cost to that, which means you can't do something over here. I have this phrase that I tell families all the time, especially my number one family called Teresa Fenner, and she absolutely hates it. And I've said it on this show probably I don't know how many times. You can do most things in life with the families that I work with that have the means. Yep. You can do most things in life, but you can't do everything.
Yes.
And so amazing. So this is where, like, on the financial planning side, when a family really has zoned in and identified what their purposes are, what their objectives are, not only financially, but personally as well. When those are like really strong rooted, that's when people see exponential success in achieving those, because they're locked into, I want to have family experiences. I want to help lessen the burden of college expenses for my kids. And so then we take that and we say, okay, what does that mean? How do we turn that purpose into an objective? Well, that means we're going to save, I don't know, $10,000 a year to be able to go on one really nice family trip. Or we're going to set aside $500 a month into our kids' 529 college plans. Is that going to make us be able to, or help us pay for 4 years of an undergrad degree? No, but the families have that satisfaction that at least I know I'm doing something and I'm working towards that objective and that purpose. And that's where I think the only social media platform that I'm on is LinkedIn. I got off of Facebook and Instagram over a year ago, and that's really some of my worst competition as far as financial planning and running the family office at TAMA the way that I do, is because Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, it's just a human highlight reel of here's all the wonderful things that we're doing. And people are like, I know this because I sit with families, week in and week out. Like, how do they do that? Like, I don't know.
And you don't know. And honestly, there's no right answer. You could have someone that came into a big inheritance unexpectedly that you don't know about, or somebody might be maxing out their credit cards and they put on the facade that they have everything in this life, but really they're drowning in debt. I mean, you have all these situations, like being a travel professional, like I see it all. Like I see a family that, they want to just put the image out there and they'll pay me on 20 different credit cards just to make a trip. And I'm the agent. I do whatever they want me to do. I'm not judging. Right. Like you, as long as you travel, I'm happy. So, but I mean, that's why I kind of like, and it like warms my heart too that I just see people that they will, they're just saving up to like do this one once in a lifetime. It's like I get to deal with so many different dreams in this world, and I love every single one of them. And that's like kind of like my why and what I'm doing. And even like, we've had situations in my life like where, my dad worked in the automotive industry and, might have like lost his job or things like growing up. And, we've had to, make sacrifices and move things around. But despite all of that, like what I remember is just, us, whether we drove to Myrtle Beach and did a lower cost vacation or we went all out on a Disney cruise, like those that my parents, I knew they worked hard growing up and provided that for us and everything. A kid's not going to know if your trip costs $2,000 or $20,000 at the end of the day. But, it's just, like I said, it's all about the memories. And even just rooting back to the sports things, it's justifiable when you need to change it, when it's something like, yeah, if my high school softball team was in districts and we had a trip, absolutely, we are skipping this trip. Yeah. But if it's just like a, travel ball, we have tournaments every other weekend for 5 months straight and I have to miss one of them, technically my kid could get hit in the ankle with a fly ball or something and be out of the games on an injury. So you have to kind of wait, like, is a team going to like, what are they at stake? They're not getting a $5 million purse from winning the World Series. It's kids travel. So
yeah, last I checked, there's no NIL money for 12 and 13-year-olds.
Right. And so, and if your parents want to judge, it's probably because they're jealous because they want to go on the vacation too. So, if super parent wants to get mad at you for missing a week for this or that, like I said, circumstances come up. And even, like I said, back to being a travel professional, I deal with all of it. I will help my guests get out of crazy things. I've seen, freak accidents, you name it. And that's another reason to have us on your side versus, booking through call centers and discount things and stuff, because it's the service we provide and the connections that we have to pull strings and get you. Like we had a guest who was on he booked on a Europe cruise actually for the summer. And the husband's mother had to get like an open heart surgery. They didn't get travel insurance through the cruise line. And technically, they had, I think it was like through their Chase, but in a lot of situations with insurance, the illness, death, or injury clauses, I call it like the big three, are typically the covered reasons. But usually a lot of the underwriters will have it where it has to be somebody traveling that's impacted, not like, it could be like a death of a family member, but like, illness clause could be, if the person's not traveling, that could cause you an issue. They'd be like, well, you're not the one with the open heart surgery. It's the relative.
Right.
And so we actually were able to, work with the cruise line and get some exceptions made because they didn't have the insurance on that, and it worked itself out. But had they not, booked it elsewhere on their own, they might not have gotten the corporate level, exceptions where we're going through the corporate resolutions department and not just saying, oh, I asked someone in Pakistan, they said no, click. You're getting real people at the real locations that matter.
One thing I think that I want to bring up, and I think it's probably a fitting into this part of our conversation, is one of the most powerful tools that I recreated because I actually had another advisor that I'm friends with. She's the one that gave me the idea, was to create, I call it like this it's kind of like a calendar of memorable moments. And so on it has specifically how many summers left do you have with your kids. And I remember the first time I ever showed it to somebody, single mom, couple kids, and she started getting very emotional because it was visual. You could see on the piece of paper, yeah. I have 5 summers left with my kids. How do you want to spend it? And I think this has really hit home for Teresa, and I know Teresa's probably going to listen to this episode.
Yep.
This has been really hitting home for Teresa. Why? Because our triplets just started high school a few weeks ago, and that clock is ticking inside of her head. And as much as Madison will put up resistance about not wanting to miss swim or not missing practice or whatnot, like I try to remind her, I'm like, Madison, missing 1 week of swim is not going to have any bearing on your potential Olympic career if that's what you really want to do. We try to keep in perspective, but you're also dealing with teenagers that their lives revolve around their activity, their sports, their friends, and I get that part too. But I think as parents, at least from my perspective, I have to try to remind my kids that, we only have 3 more summers left with you before you're off to college. And I was reading, I don't know where this came from, but it was the founder of Kinko's. You remember Kinko's that was bought out by FedEx? Paul Kruf, I think. I'm butchering his last name, but he's the founder, and he said this. He said, you've done a good job as a parent when your kids want to come and hang out with you when they get older or when they're adults. I'm paraphrasing that. And that always has stuck with me. And I type that out, and I see that every morning when I start my day. And it's a constant reminder to understand the seasons that you're in as parents and the transitions that you're going in. And like right now, it's a challenging one for Teresa and I with the triplets plus one. Now I guess Mac will be a teenager here in 30 more days. And going through that, but having that hope that, okay, do what we can today to hopefully set us up for success down the road, that these 4 kids would want to come back and hang out with us and go on a Disney cruise or go to, Disney World with mom and hang out for the day and be able to drink around Epcot. So,
and what's really interesting too is like my family, we travel together all the time. Like my family is like my travel buddies, and my in-laws, even, like we travel with them. We'll do kind of crazy stuff. But anyway, and doing this as a job, I see, I'll get a fair share of, like, I see a lot of grandparents that have saved up and they want to take their kids and their grandkids, so the kids are like my age.
Yeah, generational family trips,
you get that. But then I also see a big trend now. A lot of people, in their 30s, 40s, 50s nowadays, like they make more money nowadays than their parents made back in the day. And so I also see it's really neat, like people my age going and booking trips and bringing the grandparents and paying for the grandparents because they made more than them and they want to give back for the memories they gave them growing up. And I think that's really cool too. So, because then we'll get people. One of my financial planner friends had asked me, he's like, do you see more of, the grandparents paying or the people paying for the grandparents?
Yeah.
And there's a pretty decent split between it, more so it's an interesting trend to me that I see that, they're covering the costs for them to kind of, be able to give them these memories to continue.
Yeah, I see that a lot
too.
on the 2 Disney cruises that we've been on, Teresa and I, with you could see the generational families, especially on some of those nights like where you dress up as like pirates or whatever. Like we saw a whole family that went as like the Peter Pan collage. It was amazing. And I know Teresa's already thinking about that. It's like, I don't want to rush these years away, obviously, and I want my kids to have an awesome life and experience. But like the thought of like having grandkids and being able to take them to Disney World or on a Disney cruise, she's like, yeah, that's my happy place. And as you know, Teresa, really well by now, like Disney's her thing. So, and
this is actually funny. I was, when I was growing up, I was the oldest grandkid, second oldest on my dad's side. And the oldest was 6 months older than me. So I'll call myself the oldest kid in my family. I went through a phase, teenager, I'm trying to say like 8th to like even almost like junior, senior year, whereas like I was too cool for the family. Like we'd go on Disney cruises. You weren't going to see me. I go to the teen club, even like the one where my friends and I, we worked high school jobs and my parents let us get our own room, like on deck 2 and my family's up on deck 7. We had all the teen club parties, like the chicken tender nights. We'd order 50 platters from room service, like all that. Like those were like a lot of my memories too as a teenager. And then I'll never forget this. We went to Disney World. It was Y2K when like the Millennium theme was just big. And so like we went with our whole extended family. Like my dad had 7 kids, 7 kids in his family growing up. My grandparents, I think like 5 of the 7 kids with their extended families, like they all went. We all had to wear this matching shirt. It was like gray and it had like 2000 with like the Mickey ears and take this picture at Chef Mickey's with all of us in this. And I was mortified. I brought like a checkered plaid, like Old Navy button up shirt that like, I like opened it for the picture, but then
Benedict.
I was like such a jerk. You would see me in this picture and I was just like mortified that these people in the matching shirts and too cool. I'm doing this, but I still loved being there at the end of the day. And it fueled, my love for Disney and family memories. But I just look back, I'm like, I was such a jerk.
Well, what's to kind of wrap up, what's the best place for people to find you? And full disclosure, I probably should have said at the beginning, like we've been working, when I say we, Teresa and I have been working with Jill for the past 2 years. She's been amazing, and we so appreciate all of your insights and your help with these trips of a lifetime, and I can tell that you really care about what you do and the families that you help with your business. So yep. What's the best place for people to find you, to reach out, contact you about trying to book a potential trip?
Well, I own Wishes and Wonders Travel Agency. So our website, wisheswonderstravel.com. You can go there. All my contact information's out there. We're also on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and I dabble in TikTok a little bit. I had a video. I was on the Royal Caribbean Star of the Seas preview, and one of mine went semi-viral. I think I got like 20,000 views on it, so I felt really cool. I was like,
"That's big."
Whoa. Yeah, that's not bad. And so I will say, like, I was trying to make these TikToks, and they take like hours to make. Like I did one. It took me like 7 hours one day. I just went in the zone. I was hyper focused. And I now realize why companies have like full-time social media content creators. Cause I'm like, God, this is crazy. Cause at first, I try to do all of my own because I don't want to pay to like outsource it and stuff. I'm stubborn in certain ways with budgeting, and I still want to, be smart about it. Like I don't want to have a position, but so it's still me. And so you might see like my Facebook goes like a week without a post, and it's because typically I'm so busy in the office working. A lot of my business is referrals and personalized, people that have used me, give me to their friends and family and things. So I go on Facebook, I try to post, but it'll like my day will go by. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 10 p.m. and I didn't post. Better luck tomorrow. And then here you go. And then there's 7 days without content. So you can't win it all. And that's where I've kind of, for me, having this balance, emotional balance in life and not beating myself up because I'm not, this perfect. I'm not out there to be a YouTuber, a TikToker. That's not my profession. My profession is to sell people travel, help them with the budgeting, help them with the places, and safety is a big thing too. Like I want people to feel safe where they go. And so putting all those elements and thought into curating experiences for people. So that's what I'm good at. That's what I'll focus in. So that's where you find me.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure that you've been pretty much, or going to be pretty much a regular on the show, and I like having you on at least once or twice in a quarter to give us the latest on the travel scene and where people can find the best.
Hot topic right now is these school schedules and sports schedules.
Yeah.
Book your trips early, my friends, because I've had people even scramble. We talked about this last year. It was like, come January, February, it's snowing, it's freezing. People want to get out last minute, and you're either going to pay sky high rates or you're not going to find anything at all. Because even like Disney dropped their cruise deployment for late 2026, early 2027. I'm already booking people on Disney Cruise Line for 2027. Midwinter break sailings. Their deployment went through April, I want to say. So like those spring break 2027 is booking.
Wow,
right
that's
now.
amazing.
It's crazy.
Well, hopefully Teresa hasn't called you yet.
And yes, and we can typically apply placeholders and discounts after you book. So like I said, you're never going to lose out when you book.
All right, Jill. Well, always great to see you and have these conversations. And I'm sure that we'll probably talk again before the end of the year.
Sounds good. I'm there.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
So as Jill pointed out, there's some real value in planning these big trips early. Not only from a cost standpoint, but just from a peace of mind standpoint. We didn't really touch on that piece of it, but when you have a date on the calendar, research shows that you get just as much, if not potentially more enjoyment out of planning the trip than you do actually going on the trip. I kind of felt that way about this anniversary trip that Teresa and I went on. But I think, as I pointed out, with what I do as a financial advisor, I try extremely hard to keep politics out of portfolio management and financial planning, along with my own personal biases, especially when it comes to parenting. But having this unique set of triplets plus one, this big family of 6 that I have, trying to plan these trips around kids' schedules can get really difficult. And you get pushback from the kids, as I mentioned. Like, my daughter's a competitive swimmer. My kids all have friends that they want to hang out with. But one of the most powerful tools that I've recreated with the help of another advisor at Tama is this idea and this visualization of how many summers do I have left, as in my case, as a family of 6. And for us, we're down to 3 years now. And as I mentioned, that time clock, I think, is ticking even faster for my wife, Teresa, as our triplets just entered high school. And so where do you draw the lines? When does a ordinary baseball tournament or soccer tournament, stand in the way of being able to create what could be a family trip that'll go down in folklore, if you will? Listen, every family's different. Every family prioritizes things differently. But as I pointed out, knowing your purpose and your objectives, that being your guiding light, if you will, if you're sound in those, then you're going to make the best decision for you and your family. Now that you've made it to the end of another great conversation, are you looking for more? If so, head over to tamacapital.com, where you will find all of our conversations. Use the search feature to find the topic or guest you would love to learn more about. Also, don't forget to make someone else's day by sharing our show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.